Coming live from the Tivoli Met Radio studio here on Auraria campus, this is All Sports with Gerardo. Thank you for listening to All Sports through Met Radio on mymetmedia.com, live every Thursday from 3 to 4 p.m. This is your host Gerardo, and all I talk is sports. On the show today, I'm going to talk about NFL football, Major League Baseball, NBA basketball, Nhl Hockey, college football, and college basketball. So before I start the show, I hope you all had a great week. To start off with some Major League Baseball, DJ Lemahieu and the Yankees have agreed to a 2-year contract. So DJ Lemahieu, after the Rockies season ended, he was becoming a free agent. And looking at all the options that the Rockies had this offseason, it looked like they weren't going to bring back DJ Lemahieu. They landed up signing Daniel Murphy to a contract. They also have some young talent on the team that they want to explore with Ryan McMahon, Garrett Hampson, and some other people down in the minor leagues as well. So they definitely want to keep all their options open. After signing Daniel Murphy, it looked like they weren't going to bring DJ Lemahieu back. And it's very likely that Daniel Murphy will be starting at second base for the Rockies or at first base. So whatever they decide, then they might start one of their young stars too, like Ryan McMahon or Garrett Hampson. So we're just gonna have to wait and see what happens throughout spring training and leading up to the upcoming baseball season. But overall, DJ Lemahieu, he was a great second baseman for the Rockies, one of the best second basemen they've ever had. So I want to just say congrats to DJ Lemahieu on being able to join the Yankees. And you definitely had a great career as a Rocky, and I hope you do well as a Yankee. Also, the Yankees made some other moves throughout the week to improve their team, make their team better, because they want to compete with the Red Sox, since the Red Sox are in the same division. And after the Red Sox won the World Series last year, they got to keep up with the Reds, and that's going to be the team that is going to be like their barricade as to if they get into the playoffs, advance further into the playoffs, or potentially get to the World Series. And looking at the postseason, it was the Yankees and the Red Sox in the division series. So this year the Yankees want to make their team better, and they want to be able to win some more games so they can try to win the American League East, get into the playoffs, compete with the Red Sox, and get back to the World Series. And they don't want the Red Sox to be their barricade. So within this last week, Adam Ottavino and the Yankees have agreed to a 3-year contract. The Yankees signed pitcher Zach Britton to a 3-year contract. So they've made a lot of moves in the last few weeks, acquiring different players throughout free agency or re-signing players. So definitely keep an eye out on the Yankees, because they still got some more money to spend, and there's still some time left to see what other moves they can do to improve their team. But looking at the current roster that they should definitely be a better team in 2019 to compare it in 2018. So got to wait and see how the Yankees play this year, but definitely keep an eye out on them. Jed Lowry will be joining the Mets. The Dodgers acquired catcher Russell Martin from the Blue Jays. The Rockies have signed Chris Russin, Chad Bettis, John Gray, Scott Oberg, Tyler Anderson, Tony Walters, and Trevor Story to a 1-year contract to avoid arbitration. Also, in the next coming weeks, we should know what teams the current free agents are going to sign with, especially Bryce Harper and Manny Machado. Within this last week, the White Sox threw out an offer as to what they would pay him and what type of contract they would give him. There has been no decision as to if Machado is going to accept that or not. So we're going to have to wait and see what Manny Machado's decision is. But there's definitely a lot of options and a lot of free agents that are still available in the market. Right now I'm going to take a commercial break. When I come back, I will talk about the NFL. Welcome back to All Sports with Gerardo. Moving on now to NFL football. According to multiple reports, Gary Kubiak will not become the Broncos' offensive coordinator for the 2019 season. The Vikings are going to hire Gary Kubiak to have an offensive advisory role within the organization. Gary Kubiak's son Clint will become the Vikings quarterback coach, and Kevin Stefanski will be the Vikings offensive coordinator. The Broncos are going to hire Rich Sabagruo to be their new offensive coordinator. The Cardinals are going to hire former Broncos head coach Vance Joseph to be their new defensive coordinator. The Bears are going to hire Chuck Pagano to be their new defensive coordinator. The Packers are going to hire former Jaguars offensive coordinator Nhl Hockey to be their new offensive coordinator. Russell Wilson will attend spring training with the Yankees this year. Moving on now. Right now I'm going to tell you the final scores from divisional weekend. So to start off, in the divisional weekend, the Chiefs beat the Colts 31-13. The Rams beat the Cowboys 30-22. The Patriots beat the Chargers 41-28. And the Saints beat the Eagles 20-14. So that's the final scores from divisional weekend. Right now I'm going to tell you the highlights from this week of football. In the Chiefs-Colts game, it was actually snowing before this game started, but it was still a good game overall. With the Chiefs being the first seed in the AFC, they have home field advantage throughout the playoffs. All they got to do is win 2 games and they're in the Super Bowl. A lot of people expect the Chiefs to be in the Super Bowl, so I really thought that the Colts would have a chance to go into Kansas City and beat the Chiefs, but the Chiefs were able to win this game. If you know the history about the Chiefs, they did not have a good playoff record, whether they're playing in Kansas City at Arrowhead or they're on the road. They have not been able to win a playoff game lately, but this year they turned that around. They were able to win a playoff game and win by a decent amount. It wasn't a close game at all, so it's good that the Chiefs won this game. But overall for the Colts, they had a great season. After the halfway point of the regular season, they really turned it around and they became a really great team. They were very good on offense. They started playing better defense. And coming into the playoffs, I really thought that the Colts would be a big threat, especially when they got to the Chiefs. But overall, the Colts did have a great season. And for the Chiefs, they are moving on to the AFC Championship game. In the Rams-Cowboys game, this landed up being a close game. At the beginning of the game, the Cowboys were scoring first, but this game was in Los Angeles, so the Rams started playing better football after the first quarter and they started scoring points. Believe it or not, C.J. Anderson was the hero of the game. He actually played better than Todd Gurley, and it helped that he was able to rush for a lot of yards, score some touchdowns. Believe it or not, with C.J. Anderson, the Broncos decided not to bring him back in the offseason. So then he was a free agent. The Raiders picked him up. He didn't really play a whole lot there. The Raiders released him. Then the Panthers picked him up. He didn't even make it to a game or last a few weeks. The Panthers released him. And then the Rams picked him up to be a backup to Todd Gurley. And C.J. Anderson got to show who he was in the divisional game of this year's playoffs. C.J. Anderson is a great running back, especially when he played here for the Broncos. He was our running back when the Broncos won Super Bowl 50, so C.J. Anderson definitely still has a lot left in the tank. But overall, the Rams were able to find a way to score some points, and they landed up beating the Cowboys at the end of the game. And I kind of knew that the Rams were going to win this game, but the Cowboys really did have a good chance as well. In the Patriots-Chargers game, this was a great game. This year, the Chargers were such a great team. On the road, they were undefeated up until the divisional weekend. They were a hard team to beat. They went on the road. It was like a guarantee that they were going to win. When they were in Los Angeles, they really had a hard time winning at home, but they still won a few home games, but they could have won the ones that they lost. This was a year that I believe Phillip Rivers had the best team around him, and I really saw the Chargers being a threat in the playoffs and getting to the Super Bowl. The Chargers could have been one of the three teams that made it out of the AFC and got to the Super Bowl. They had to overcome this obstacle of playing the Patriots. And they had to go on the road to New England to play the Patriots. As we all know, the Patriots, yes, they could be the most hated team, but they're one of the best teams, especially football-wise. They've been the best team these last 2 decades. They could be the team of the century in the NFL. The Patriots, when they get into the playoffs, because they have the talent, they have the experience, they got Tom Brady that has the experience, that's been in the playoffs many times. They got Coach Bill Belichick. They always find a way to win. And when they're up in New England, it's very hard to beat them at home. And that's usually where they're always winning their games. So when a team has to go on the road to New England, they have a very hard time in beating the Patriots in New England. So overall, this was a great game. Believe it or not, a lot of people were questioning the Patriots, whether is Tom Brady going downhill since he's older now. He's almost 40 years old. Is this the last of Tom Brady? Is this the last of a dynasty team? But in this game, the Patriots went out there to show who they were. They were able to beat the Chargers. For most of this game, they were winning and they had a big lead. The Chargers were trying to come back, but for the Chargers, it just wasn't enough points that they scored. So the Patriots landed up winning this game, and the Patriots are moving on to the AFC Championship. In the Saints-Eagles game, this was a great game. It was a very close game. The Eagles had a great chance after beating the Bears to try to win another playoff game. They won the Super Bowl last year, so they wanted to win the Super Bowl back-to-back years. Since Carson Wentz had to come out of the game earlier in the regular season and he was going to be out for the rest of the season, they had to turn to their backup quarterback, Nick Flores, and that's the quarterback that took them to the Super Bowl last year. They won the Super Bowl with Nick Flores, so they were like, well, maybe we got another chance with him. Overall, Nick Flores is a great quarterback, but the Eagles did have to go on the road to New Orleans and play the Saints down at the Superdome. When the Saints are at home in the Superdome in New Orleans, they're a very hard team to beat. The Saints play their best football in New Orleans, but when they go on the road, they can struggle a bit and they don't win as many games on the road. But I really saw the Saints winning this game, and they landed up winning it even though it was a close game. So that's the highlights from the divisional weekend. Now looking at the championship weekend, after the Chiefs beat the Colts and the Patriots beat the Chargers in the AFC. The Patriots are going to go against the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game. After the Rams beat the Cowboys and the Saints beat the Eagles, the Rams and the Saints are going to go against each other in the NFC Championship game. So that's the 2 championship games this weekend. Patriots quarterback Tom Brady has appeared in 13 conference championship games, and this is the most appearances by a quarterback in NFL history. The next closest quarterbacks to appear in the most conference championship games in NFL history: Joe Montana, 7, Terry Bradshaw, John Elway, and Roger Staubach, 6. Tom Brady has also won more playoff games, and he has started 38 playoff games, which is the most by any quarterback in NFL history. Tom Brady and the Patriots definitely have a lot of experience in the playoffs. Tom Brady has played in 8 straight conference championship games. This is going to be his 13th conference championship game. He has won 5 Super Bowls. He has played in 8 Super Bowls. So this is just another year that we see the Patriots in the playoffs and having the potential of winning the championship game and going back to the Super Bowl, and for Tom Brady to win his 6th Super Bowl title. When Tom Brady decides that it's going to be his last season in the NFL and he retires from football, he's definitely going to be one of the best quarterbacks to ever play in the NFL. He's definitely a first ballot Hall of Famer. Looking at his numbers from the regular season and the playoffs, he has some of the best numbers that any quarterback has ever produced in NFL history. So we're going to have to wait and see if the Patriots can beat the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game this weekend. It's definitely going to be interesting. But looking at the Patriots, when they've gone on the road to play in the conference championship game, they have lost a couple times. If you can remember, when the Broncos went to Super Bowl 48 and Super Bowl 50, They landed up playing the Patriots in the conference championship game those 2 years, and they did beat the Patriots since it was here at Mile High Stadium in Denver. So the Chiefs really have a great chance of winning the conference championship game since it's at their stadium in Kansas City. So the Patriots are going to have to really play some good football on the road. As we all know, when the Patriots have hosted the conference championship game, they're very dominant and they're very hard to beat up in New England. So going to have to wait and see. Looking at the beginning of the season, it looked like this was going to be the end for Tom Brady and the Patriots. But as we all know, they always find a way to come back to win. They always win their division. They always get into the playoffs. They always get to the conference championship game. When they win that, they always get to the Super Bowl. And they usually always win the Super Bowl too. Not too many teams have been able to beat them in the playoffs or in the Super Bowl. So it's definitely going to be another interesting year with the Patriots and to see what Tom Brady and the Patriots do. So that's what's to watch for in this week of football. And of course, you got to tune into the AFC Championship game between the Patriots and the Chiefs, and the NFC Championship game between the Rams and the Saints. There are definitely going to be some great games to watch. Both games are going to be great to watch, and they're going to be rematches since both of these teams went up against each other in the regular season. Right now I'm going to take a commercial break. When I come back, I will talk about the NBA and NHL. Welcome back to All Sports with Gerardo. Moving on now to NBA basketball. Spurs head coach Greg Popovich passed Jerry Sloan to move into third in all-time coaching wins. Only Lenny Wilkens and Don Nelson are in front of Greg Popovich. Steph Curry moved into third in all-time three-pointers made. Kyle Korver moved into fourth in all-time three-pointers made. James Harden moved into 13th in all-time three-pointers. In the Warriors-Nuggets game, the Warriors scored 51 points in the first quarter, which is the most points scored in the first quarter in NBA history. Looking at this Warriors-Nuggets game, a lot of people were saying that this was going to be the game of the NBA season, even the game of the century. But it landed up not being as good as it was the first time the Warriors and the Nuggets went against each other here at the Pepsi Center at the beginning of the basketball season. The Warriors came into Denver and really showed the Nuggets and the rest of the NBA, but especially the Western Conference, who they are, what type of team they are, and they really gave themselves away and showed a statement of who they are since they have the experience and the talent. They've been to the playoffs the last few years. They've been to the finals. They've won the finals 3 times. They've won the finals back to back. They have the talent of Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Kevin Durant, Draymond Green. So in the Warriors-Nuggets game, the Warriors came out ready to play. And when you look at the Warriors, they're a great team. Yes, they have the experience. They got the talent. Their number one killer for any team is the three-pointers that big three can make. The Nuggets landed up losing this game by almost 30 points. And the reason as to that is because the Warriors just kept shooting threes and making them every single time. They hardly missed the three-pointers that they made. And if you leave these guys wide open, they're going to take the shot. They're going to find a way to get open. They're going to make those threes. They're very good at threes, especially Steph Curry and Klay Thompson. So the Warriors came in here and gave the Nuggets a reality check. The Warriors showed who is the best team in the Western Conference and who is one of the best teams in the NBA. And since the Nuggets were number 1 and the Warriors were number 2 in the Western Conference, after the Warriors won this game, the Warriors are now number 1 and the Nuggets are now number 2. There's still a lot of basketball to be played. We're like in the middle of the regular season right now. For the Nuggets, it's only one game that they lost by a lot of points. But it really gave them a reality check to look at their roster, look at the type of players that they have, and look at the talent they might need if they want to go deep into the playoff. In this Warriors-Nuggets game, it could have been a preview of these two teams meeting up in the Western Conference Final. But looking at this game, if the Warriors and the Nuggets did meet up in the playoffs, especially in the Western Conference Finals, I would have to pick the Warriors because they got the and they got the experience. But the Nuggets, they got a lot of young talent and they got potential stars in the NBA. So even if it's not this year that make it far into the playoffs, they're going to be there down the road, and they might even land up meeting the Warriors in the Western Conference Finals, even if it's not this year. You definitely want to keep an eye out on the Nuggets and definitely keep an eye out on the Warriors because they showed who they were and they showed they've been there before and that they got the talent. Right now I'm going to give you the current NBA standings in the Eastern and Western Conference. To start off in the Eastern Conference, at number 1 is the Milwaukee Bucks, and number 2 is the Toronto Raptors, and number 3 is the Indiana Pacers, and number 4 is the Philadelphia 76ers, and number 5 is the Boston Celtics, and number 6 is the Miami Heat, and number 7 is the Brooklyn Nets, and at number 8 is the Charlotte Hornets. So that's the top 8 teams in the Eastern Conference. Looking at the Eastern Conference, the Bucks have been holding on to the number 1 spot. They've shown that they're a great team. The Raptors are holding on to the number 2 spot. They've definitely been one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference. The Pacers have the 3rd spot, and not a whole lot of people talk about the Pacers, but they definitely have some young talent, and you got to keep an eye out on them because they can definitely play some great basketball. The 76ers have been playing great basketball. The Celtics are starting to win games and play better basketball. So that's what's to watch for in the Eastern Conference. In the Western Conference, right now the Golden State Warriors are in the 1st spot. The Denver Nuggets are in the 2nd spot. The Oklahoma City Thunder are in the 3rd spot. The Portland Trail Blazers are in the 4th spot. The Houston Rockets are in the 5th spot. The San Antonio Spurs are in the 6th spot. The Los Angeles Clippers are in the 7th spot. And the Utah Jazz are in the 8th spot. So that's the top 8 teams in the Western Conference. Looking at the Western Conference, the Warriors have definitely shown that they're the best team in the Western Conference and that they're one of the best teams in the NBA. The Nuggets are still in the top 3 of the Western Conference even after losing to the Warriors, but their next few games is a favorable schedule, and they could definitely win some of these games and get back to that number 1 spot that they've been holding on to for the last few weeks. The Thunder have been a great team, especially with the talent that they have on the team, so you got to keep an eye out on them. The Trailblazers have been playing great basketball. The Rockets have been playing great basketball lately. After not starting out the season that great, they've definitely been picking it up, and they've looked like they deserve to be in the top 8 of the Western Conference and that they could be one of the best teams in the Western Conference and in the NBA. You always need to keep an eye out on the Spurs. The Clippers have been a surprise to the NBA. And since LeBron James has been out since Christmas after suffering that groin injury, the Lakers have moved out of the top 8. And the Jazz have moved into the 8th spot of the Western Conference. The Jazz are another young team that has young talent, and they definitely have a lot of potential going into the future. You definitely want to keep an eye out for the Jazz. And looking at the Western Conference, depending on LeBron gets back on the court for the Lakers, and depending what else happens for the rest of the season with all the teams in the Western Conference, there's going to be some great teams that don't make it into the playoffs, or they can't slide into those last few spots of the Western Conference, because the Western Conference is just so competitive and there's a lot of talent in this conference. So definitely need to keep an eye out for that. And since we're at the halfway point of the NBA regular season, definitely looking at who would be MVP right now, it would definitely have to be Giannis Antetokounmpo on the Bucks. He's been having a great season so far. Or James Harden. The plays that he can make, the way he shoots the basketball, it's just unbelievable. He's been called even one of the best shooters in basketball of all time, or in basketball right now. He's definitely one of the best shooters, so definitely need to keep an eye out on Giannis and James Harden. For Defensive Player of the Year. Definitely Paul George has been having a great season. He could even be MVP as well. For Rookie of the Year, it would probably have to be Luka Doncic on the Mavericks. He's been having a great season overall. So definitely you need to keep an eye out on Giannis, James Harden, Paul George, and Luka Doncic. They've definitely been having a great season. It's going to be interesting to see who wins MVP in the NBA especially. But all the other awards are going to be pretty set in stone as to who wins that. But there's still a lot of basketball left to be played. In the Week 14 NBA Power Rankings, the current top 10 NBA basketball teams are the Raptors, Warriors, Bucks, Nuggets, Pacers, Thunder, Rockets, Spurs, Celtics, and 76ers. Moving on now to NHL Hockey. Right now I'm going to give you the current NHL standings in the Eastern and Western Conference. In the NHL, the division standings go off the amount of goals a team scored, not by the wins or losses by the team. So to start off in the Eastern Conference in the Metropolitan Division, right now Columbus and Washington are tied for this division at 59 points, and the New York Islanders and Pittsburgh are right behind Columbus and Washington at 56 points. In the Atlantic Division, right now Tampa Bay is leading this division at 74 points, and the next closest team to Tampa is Toronto at 58 points, but overall Tampa has a great lead in this division. In the Western Conference, in the Central Division, right now Winnipeg's leading this division at 62 points, and Nashville's right behind them at 60 points. And in the Pacific Division, right now Calgary is leading this division at 65 points, and San Jose is right behind them at 63 points. So that's the current NHL standings in the Eastern and Western Conference. Right now I'm going to take a commercial break. When I come back, I will talk about college football, college basketball, and the end of the show. Welcome back to All Sports with Gerardo. Moving on now to college football. Alabama quarterback Jalen Hertz has committed to play his senior season at Oklahoma. Oklahoma has had two straight Heisman Trophy winners, Baker Mayfield and Kyler Murray, in 2017 and in 2018. So Oklahoma has a chance of three quarterbacks in a row winning the Heisman. We will have to wait and see how Jalen Hertz and Oklahoma plays in that 2019 season, but Jalen Hertz could possibly win the Heisman in 2019. In June of 2018, Kyler Murray signed a contract with the Oakland Athletics. He played his junior year at Oklahoma and he won the Heisman. Oklahoma was ranked number 4 in college football. Last week he declared for the 2019 NFL Draft. He could become the first player ever drafted in the first round of the NFL and Major League Baseball draft, and he could play both football and baseball. We're going to have to wait and see, but he's expected to pursue football and hopefully get drafted in the upcoming NFL draft. It's looking like he would go in the first round of the NFL. There's a few different teams that could possibly pick, but according to multiple reports, a lot of analysts are saying that Kyler Murray is going to have to decide between football or baseball. Yes, he could play both, but it's looking like he could not play both at the same time. And looking at him from a baseball perspective and now a football perspective, it looks like he would have more success as being a quarterback in the NFL playing football compared to playing baseball in Major League Baseball. So we're just going to have to wait and see what Kyler Murray's decision is as to, is he going to pick football or baseball, or is he going to play both sports? If he has the time and the talent, he definitely could. Not a whole lot of athletes in the past have played both sports, and there's not really any athletes now that play both sports. So it would definitely be nice to be able to see somebody play both sports, because it doesn't happen all the time. So we're just gonna have to wait and see what happens in the coming months. For moving on now to college basketball. In the Week 11 men's college basketball AP top 10 poll. The current top 10 college basketball teams are Duke, Michigan, Tennessee, Virginia, Gonzaga, Michigan State, Kansas, Texas Tech, Virginia Tech. Moving on now to end the show. What to watch for this week in sports. The NFL playoffs this weekend with the AFC and NFC championship. In the championship weekend in the AFC, the Patriots go against the Chiefs, and in the NFC, the Rams go against the Saints. NBA, the Nuggets, college basketball. Moving on now, starting next week, All Sports with Gerardo will still take place every Thursday afternoon, but instead of All Sports with Gerardo being it's going to be between 3:30 to 5 p.m. Sometime between 3:30 to 5 p.m. I will be doing All Sports with Gerardo. All Sports with Gerardo will likely be starting a half an hour or 45 minutes. So just tune in to All Sports with Gerardo every Thursday afternoon still from 3:30 to 5 p.m. on mymetmedia.com/listen. As always, if you can't listen to the show when go to my YouTube page at All Sports with Gerardo. You can watch any of my episodes of All Sport from now or the past on youtube.com. So there's many options as to when you can watch my episodes or where you can watch my episodes. I also post all of my content on my social media pages as well. Moving on now, on the next show, I will talk about NFL football, Major League Baseball, NBA basketball, Nhl Hockey, and college basketball. Tune in to the next All Sports with Gerardo show next Thursday from 3:30 to 5 p.m. I want to say thank you to everybody that listens to All Sports through Met Radio here on mymetmedia.com. Subscribe or like my pages on social media at All Sports with Gerardo. Until next time, this is Gerardo.